Salutations and shit, guys. Welcome to another episode of Travel and Shit Podcast. I am your host, T. Carrie, and here at Travel and Shit, I always want to say we, but it's me. Unless I have a guest, of course. But whether it be myself or myself and a guest, basically having conversation about how travel is more than vacation. And it's less about the destination and more about the experience. So if you're new, welcome. Happy to have you here. And if you've been here for a little bit or for a long time, or even for the first time, I appreciate you. So, announcements, getting it out the way. There's merch. If you're interested, travelandshippodcast.com. Go to shop. Get you t-shirts. Actually added a couple of new designs because the whole I don't want to say designing like I'm doing that much work, but I also don't want to not say designing because I don't want to shit on the work that I did do. But putting together merch, shirts, phone cases, tote bags, which reminds me I was supposed to check samples that arrived. Well, not samples. Somebody purchased them and I was supposed to check out how they looked. Shout out to those of y'all that have already bought stuff. Thank you. Appreciate you. Y'all are real ones. This is also May at the time of recording, so it is currently Mental Health Awareness Month. So I strongly encourage everyone, especially considering this is a global pandemic. So regardless of where you're listening to this episode, somehow Corona has touched your region, whether harshly or softly, whatever the case is. And even if it's not Corona related, everybody got some shit, right? So definitely take some time and focus on your mental health. For me, that has looked like buying plants. I have, I believe, increased my plant ownership by 100%. I think I've doubled the number of plants that are in my apartment, which is cool because I fucks with them. I have also found such an incredible community in Black plant moms. The internet's, more specifically being Instagram, has been a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, and just a really great community of people that like the same things. So definitely do something that focuses on your mental health. And if you, so speaking of my plants, if you are interested, I have a 15% discount to one of my favorite online, I don't want to say boutiques, but it's a nursery in Rhode Island that actually sells plants online as well. Jordan's Jungle. And they have, I have a 15% off code with them. And they have also graciously agreed to some gift cards. So I will be announcing some winners in the upcoming time. And I still have a giveaway going for the big mama winner is a $50 gift card. And that is to be used at jordansjungle.net. Thank you to Jordan for that. And all you have to do for that is to join my mailing list. And you can do such by going to my Instagram, which is _dcarry, or travel and shit. The underscore is going to be where the I and shit is. And there's a link for the mailing list. There's also a link, I want to say, on the website. But y'all, I'm doing all of this myself. I don't claim to be a tech genius. I just Google and YouTube a lot, so bear with me, but there's absolutely a link for the mailing list in my Instagram. I have a link tree, so all the links are there. Last part is listener survey. I would really appreciate if you guys can take 3 minutes to just answer, I think it's like 10 questions about you guys, maybe 15 if we're stretching, but they're basic questions. It's nothing thought-provoking or anything ridiculous, just so I can get a better feel for who actually listens to the podcast. So I was able to keep that under 5 minutes. Yay me. Welcome to this week's episode. So, in light of all these new plants And being in the house, because I am fortunate to have a 9 to 5 that actually just pays me at this current stage to be in my home. So as much as I am ready to transition from that professionally, it pays bills. So alas, it is what it is. And the plants have essentially been my refuge. I have very much so appreciated having the ability to just distract myself by paying more attention to the plants that I have in my home. For the most part, all the ones I have, I want to say, are in the, before I bought a bunch more, they're essentially all pothos, and a couple of philodendrons. But, and those are very, very easy to care for. Absolutely are. Wow, I'm looking at all the ones I had, except for my ZZ plant. I had a snake plant. But again, all really rugged and easy to care for plants, except for this one here behind me that you guys always see. I think it's like a corn plant, but I'm not certain. But all that being said, you know, I'm going to eventually tie this into travel just because it's a gift. It's what I do. So, all that being said, I have realized that I've been learning a lot from my plants. I don't know if it's just during this COVID stay in place quarantine. I feel like it's brought more to my attention now. I'll say very much so, easily. So hopefully this is going to be a quick episode. But every time I say that, it's like an hour later and I'm wrapping it up. But trying to open my notes. All right, boom. So a couple of the things that I have learned from my plants that also have parallels to travel, because again, a gift. One of the first things that I will say is that when something is wrong, fix it. Otherwise, give your decision time to show it was good or not. So one of the things that I realized, first let's start with, I'm still working on that one. Okay, this is one that I'm absolutely still working on. I'm a plant hover mom. I'm one of those people that is like constantly looking at the plant to see if I can see a difference. I'm always looking to see if I can tell if it's growing, because believe it or not, sometimes you could look at a plant at 9 o'clock on Friday and 9 a.m. Saturday morning, it's got a whole ass flower on it. You know what I mean? So it's not unheard of for things to develop quickly in plants. You know what I mean? You buy a new plant, 3 days later, all of a sudden it's sprouting new leaves. Like, shit happens, right? But oftentimes it doesn't. And I am one of those people that, okay, is this a good spot? Is this enough light? Am I watering it too much? Okay, so how are you reacting to the tap water here? Is it different than tap water or whatever the fuck water they were giving you where you were? I tend to really just get in my head about things. And honestly, the plants are teaching me to worry less. It has been the slowest process of the 3 things that I'm going to mention that I've been learning from paying more attention to my plants, but it's still something that I've been learning. I don't know if it's a Leo trait or if it's just a me trait, but I tend to worry a lot. I have anxiety. I'm always wondering if the decision that I am making is a good decision, and that often puts me in a place of not making decisions. So I listen to The Read a lot, and Crystal suggests numerous times to watch The Good Place. So I fucking watched The Good Place, and bitch, this shit is so good. The Good Place is so well written because it's 85 cents. It's like 85% philosophy, but it's done in such a palatable way. It's still a funny show. And I want to say each episode is maybe like 22 minutes, 35 minutes. I'm pretty sure half-hour episodes when they're on TV. I could be lying to you. They might be an hour, but I feel like they're 22 minutes. But all that being said, The Good Place is such a great show. And one of the main characters, Chidi, is, I think he's like a philosophy professor profession, by trade, if you will. And he is in a consistent state of indecision because he's just pondering morally whether or not his decisions are good decisions or bad decisions. I ain't really worried about, in most scenarios, whether or not something is morally good or bad. I'm just worried about cost analysis. I don't even know. I feel like I'm saying it right, but I could be wrong. But I'm worried that making decision A will cost me decision B. So it's one of those things we learned in school, but essentially I'm always worried about whether or not the decision that I'm making is a good decision. So that being said, is in terms of travel, well, because I'm into the plants, I'm always worried whether or not I'm doing something right for a particular plant. Like, it's easy for a new plant, I'll say. When I know one of the plants is like just doing well, like I know what plants are doing well when they're doing well, because they're the ones that I've had for a while and they just manage to keep living. But when I get new plants, it's like a new anxiety in terms of, am I putting it in the right spot? The directions that came with it are very vague. They're so like, legit, a lot of them are just ambiguous. Medium water. The fuck is medium water? I don't know. You're showing me a little picture, indirect sunlight. So the way my apartment is set up, it's kind of like, so is that like not on the window, or we're talking 7 feet from the window? You know what I mean? It gets a little hazy for me just because I didn't write the directions. But I find that same level of anxiety when it comes to travel generally only shows itself in my planning phase. When I am planning my trip, I am consistently worried that I'm making the wrong choice. And that generally comes into play the most when it comes to choosing accommodations. Ooh, Father, Lord Jesus. When I tell you, I get so flustered and so just in a spot of indecision when I've got too many options. It's kind of like when you walk into a restaurant. All you know is that you're kind of hungry, or you know that you're going to go to one spot with the intention of maybe just getting some wings and a beer. That's my go-to. I love wings and a beer. So you say to yourself, I'm going to go here and get wings or a beer. Oh, I remember the last time that it was like, it stood out to me. I went to this spot in Brooklyn and they were supposed to have really great burgers, right? So I get to the place thinking that, all right, well, I'm going to get a bacon cheddar cheeseburger, because I don't do American cheese. In my mind, it's like peasant cheese. I fucking hate American cheese. But so I go to this spot, and in my head, I'm like, all right, bacon cheddar cheeseburger, or maybe like Monterey Jack cheese, or maybe pepper jack cheese. I don't know. Might get fancy. Not fancy, but might get cute and do Swiss or something. I don't know. But I'm going to do just cheese, bacon, and a burger. Well, I fucking get there, and then I look at the menu, and they've got all these other options. Like, they'll put the egg on, they'll do the avocado, they'll do onions, they'll do mushrooms. Now I've got so many different options, and there's so many different types of burgers that now all of a sudden I don't know what I want. So it's just, well, if I choose this, will I be thinking I should have gotten this? And it plays itself over and over in so many aspects of life. But mostly I see it when it comes to choosing an Airbnb. I really, my head is starting to hurt just thinking about the efforts that I put into choosing a place, because my concern is, do I want to, you kind of got to have a feel in terms of what I've learned from my travels. When you're choosing a place to stay, you want to consider what staying in one place will cost you versus what staying in another place will cost you. And I learned that the hard way in Barcelona, excuse me, depending on how you do it. If you're, what's the girl's name? The fancy one from The Good Place, Tahini. All that being said, when I was in Barcelona, I found a really, really great place that, a good, affordable, if you will. I won't say great. I mean, it was a cute little apartment. Turned out it was like, kind of like a hostel, but not a hostel. I mean, I had washer dryer in the, it was like a little apartment, honestly. It was a really cute little studio. Washer, dryer, I think it had like a dishwasher, fridge, like the whole shebang. The bitch was set up. It was really cute, right? But it was like an hour from the city. I was all the way out in the mountains, and it was gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous scenery. I loved it. It was beautiful. Had incredible view. Incredible view. However, being that I was so far from the city, it cost me almost $100 each taxi ride to get to the city. So I spent $90 getting from the airport to the Airbnb. And I've mentioned this before. And I then had excursions that I booked before I got there, that I had to take a taxi to get to the city because that's where the pickup was, and then I had to get back to where I was, and then I knew I had to go back to the airport to get the fuck home. So that's 4 taxi rides, regardless of whether or not and then that, spending that much money to like just commute ended up, like, I could have spent an extra $150 for the 3 days that I was probably in Barcelona. Was I even there 3 days? I might have been there like 3 days. Like, it would have just been more cost efficient for me to spend more money and stay in the city, like in the heart of the city, so that I can, you know, explore in the evenings and not have to spend an hour in the taxi and $100, give or take, getting back to where I was trying to go. So I will say that I learned that lesson the hard way in terms of where you want to stay, and I think that that adds to why it's so stressful for me to pick a location to stay, because cost is very important to me, because I don't want to, you know, spend more than I absolutely need to. But then at the same time, I realize that if I stay further away from the things that I want to do, that I'll have to then pay for it in terms of transportation. So unless they've got like a good train system or metro system, or even if they got buses, Bermuda had great buses. They were beautiful, they were clean, and from where I was staying, it went everywhere I needed to go. So unless they've got a great metro system, or the taxis are really inexpensive, then, you know, you want to choose someplace that is near the things that you want to do. This way you don't end up spending time getting to and from the area that you need to be, and money getting to and from the area that you need to be. So granted, a certain level of the anxiety that goes into choosing a place to stay is warranted, because I know what I'm risking should I choose the wrong place. Also consider, being a solo traveler, I am alone. So I don't necessarily want to be in a neighborhood where I will feel unsafe. So I remember, where was I? Peru. I want to say I was going to Peru, and I have a friend that has, hey Karina, I have a friend that Karina has family out there. And so when I told her, because mind you, she and I had discussed going to Peru years ago when we used to work together. We never went on that trip together, but she ended up going with her family. And after seeing their pictures, I'm like, oh, I absolutely still have to go. So I ended up going solo, and I was speaking to Rena about it, and she was just like, you're going to stay in Miraflores because I told you, and because it's wild in certain areas, and if you're going to Lima, Miraflores is the safest area in that region. And so if somebody from there that I particularly trust tells me one thing or another about a destination, That's what I'm doing, period. So that made that aspect of finding someplace to stay a little bit easier for me. But now I had that in the back of my mind that my safety may be something that I'm more concerned about in this area, you know? So as a solo traveler, that's also something that goes into my decision making when I am looking for someplace to stay. So some anxiety, absolutely warranted. Like, be careful where you're placing yourself. But at the same time, don't there's no need to necessarily outdo it. So one of the things in terms of, and this is where I'm still working on it, it's I'm seeing the parallel where once I make the decision, I kind of got to give my decision time to show itself. Let it unfold. Worrying is not necessarily going to do anything for you outside of give you pause or have you pay more attention to the decision that you're making, if that makes sense. So when I'm worried about whether or not I watered this plant too much, or whether or not I'm getting root rot, or the soil is waterlogged, or oh well, what exactly does this mean? Now I gotta look this up. Let it show you what you're doing right or wrong. And it's the same thing with a lot of the different destinations. Do your research, right? I can look up how often the average rubber tree needs to be watered. I can look up in general the type of soil or the humidity conditions that a certain species of plant thrives in. But it's not a guarantee that what I'm doing in my home is going to match. I don't live in a nursery. I don't live in a greenhouse. So nothing that I do is absolutely going to be 100%. But the least I owe it to myself is to let my decision play out. And like I said, I'm working on it, but it's one of those things where I see it in the way that I arrange my travels. I stress and worry, and I worry about whether or not I'm making the right decisions about where I'm going. I know that when I book my excursions, that's another big to do. I always do a week out spread where I'll do Monday, Tuesday, say I'm going from, let's just say Monday through Friday. And one of the things that I'll suggest is when you've got a couple of different things that you're thinking about doing, always, I won't say always, but what I do is I'll plug them in. For example, Monday, I'll write down the different excursions that I want to do that are available to do on Monday. So say there are 3 different things that I'm thinking about doing, but they're only they're available Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'll write them in the little makeshift calendar that I've done so that I can visually see, okay, the only day that I can't do this is on Tuesday. So then if there's another option, then I'll say, all right, these are the days that it's available. These are the times that it's available. This way I put it all on a piece of paper, and I'll have Monday, these are my options. Tuesday through Friday, I'll have whatever the options are for each day so that I can see what is the best course of practice. What does the weather look like on those days? If it's expected to rain on Tuesday, what is the sense in booking my beach excursion or the beach experience on Tuesday? It's also available on Monday and Friday. So I would choose to do it on a Monday or Friday. But the hiking experience I want to do is only available on Monday. So I'm going to do the hiking experience on Monday, and then I'm going to do the beach experience on Friday. You see how I'm going? You see where I'm going? So I put in my graph or my chart or in my whatever, but I write down each excursion that I want to do on each day of the week that it's available, And then, of course, I also write the time, because if I can do 2 things in one day, or depending on what the thing is, you know what I mean? I'll try to see if I can combine, like if I need to be in the city center to do certain activities. Well, one is a morning activity, one is an afternoon activity. What is the sense in me having to go to a certain area more than once in a week if I don't really want to or need to? So I'll combine things on certain days so that I can, like if something's extra far, it's going to be $100 taxi, right? All right, well, one is a morning activity and another one is an afternoon activity. Or I'll only need a taxi for the one day because the trains run to the location that I'm staying in, and it'll be more cost effective for me to, you know, or it'll be easier, not necessarily, it's definitely not going to be more cost effective, but it'll be easier for me to get a taxi home at 11 p.m. than it will be to try to figure out a metro system in an entirely different language. You see what I'm saying? So I always write down what my options are for the excursions that I'm looking to do in like a week calendar. This way I can choose what day is going to be the best day for each one, because the last thing you want to do is book and pay for an experience on a day and then realize that something else you want to do is only available on that one day, and then the cancellation policy be a little rigid and not really want to work with you in terms of, you know, changing your date or getting your money back. Once I arrive, though, I will say that I've expressed or expelled or exerted, there we go, I generally exert all of my anxiety into the planning phase, and once I get to a destination, I'm pretty straight. I'm pretty straight. A little bit of anxiety until we are all seated on the plane, because it's a matter of, okay, can I get this like row of seats to myself, or do I need to, like, ooh, what if I'm stuck next to somebody that smells, or what if I'm next to a talker, or like a toucher, somebody that wants to just touch you, or, you know what I mean, when they're talking, like people that talk with, I don't like to speak to people on the planes. It's only occurred twice where I sat next to really just like gorgeous men, and one of them we actually got kind of cool. He was actually mad cool. I should scroll through my WhatsApp and see how that nigga's doing, but not on some, hey big head, but like on some, I remember you. All that being said, yeah, most of my anxiety just goes into the planning phase, just because decisions. Once I get someplace, I'm pretty straight. I dive into fear, and if there's something that interests me, or, you know, I love just roaming around neighborhoods, depending on how great or not great the Wi-Fi is, I'll just intentionally walk till I'm lost and then find my way back from there. That has been so much fun. I had a really good time doing that in Rome. When I tell y'all, I walked my ass off in Rome. The only transportation I paid for or even got on was to get from the airport to the apartment that I stayed in, and then back to the airport. That was it. Otherwise, I walked to every single thing that I went to see. So all of the what do you call them, monuments and shit, I walked. Parthenon, Colosseum, Trevi Fountain. I feel like Trevi was like the one thing that I was like, this is pretty, I like this. Everything else was a little Mouth of Truth, everything was a little less than, like, I expected so much more, you know what I mean? Like, I had such big expectations in my mind, and then when I got there, I'm just like, oh, this is small, oh, this is tiny, or, alright. And also, in terms of historical context, I didn't do any real research as to why these were things that I wanted to see, and I still haven't. So, which is strange, actually, because I love history. But moving on. So, second thing, growth takes patience, and similar to the first, but not the same, is it's one of those hindsight things where I also enjoy propagating plants, right? And propagating, if you're not familiar, is when you take a cutting from a plant, or if, say, some plants you can propagate a leaf, like if a leaf falls off or something like that, you can propagate them. I just learned that snake plants are really easy to propagate. If you accidentally rip a leaf, cut a leaf off, then you can just drop that in water. And it'll sprout roots. This way, once it sprouts roots, you can either put it in soil or you just leave it in water. I've had plants that I thought were not going to make it, but I decided to try to save them by propagating them. Like when they weren't doing well in soil, like wherever they were potted, they didn't thrive for some reason. Or after a certain number of time, whether they became root bound or whatever the reason was, they stopped thriving in the pot that they were in. So I decided to either cut what was still salvageable and savable from the plant, whether there was some part of it that was going to die or whatever, and you put them in water. And I found that if you just give it time, roots will develop. The plant will begin to thrive. Not all of them. Some of them should just absorb water, they mold, and they die. Or they get soggy, or they turn brown, or however they're going to die, a lot of them just die. But I have found that plants that, looking at them in the soil, weren't doing well, move it, change it, give it more of what it needs and not of what it's rejecting, and it will be not just fine, but it will give new life, that it will continue to grow, it will thrive, and it will flourish. So I've got some plants in my little propagation station in the kitchen here. It's on my counter right under the window. It gets incredible sunlight, and when I tell you I had this beautiful jade plant, succulents do not live long in my home, but I still try. And it just kept dying. The leaves were falling off, and most of it had died all the way up the stem, but I had like the tops of 3 different plants. So it was 2 leaves on the tops. Cut all the dead, I pulled it off, snapped it off because it pretty much died from the rest. Snapped it off and just left it in water. And I've got roots coming out of all 3 of them. And succulents, some people can propagate them in soil, not me, but I put them in water, and they're sprouting roots, and I'm so happy. But it's just that it took time. I had to take it away from what wasn't doing it well and give it what it needed, and it just needed a little love and a little bit of patience, and just water is what did it. Same thing, I was telling my mom today, happy birthday, Mom. I had taken it out of the soil and put it in water, and from the roots, like an entire different network of leaves, like a whole new plant sprouted up from the roots. And now I'm just waiting to see if the stem cutting is going to do all right. But yeah, it just, I don't want to say never, but I didn't see that happening at all. But because I just gave it what it needed, like I did what I had to do and left it alone. I just had to be patient. It's like from where I had 1 dying plant, I now have 2 healthy plants. So seeing that happen in so many different plants is really, really teaching me to just be more patient with things, especially when you know that you've done what your best is. So I'm not the greatest with plants. I've gotten a lot better than what I was maybe 10, 15 years ago. But I am trying. I'm doing what I can do based on what the internet information I'm getting and what I'm being given. And I'm just letting the efforts that I'm putting into something show their fruits. And very similar to that is sometimes I don't necessarily see the value in a trip, or I don't come home with the excitement that I have for a destination the way I do weeks and months later. And so the two places that I think of the most when I think of that are Bali and Guadeloupe. Well, Bali is a city, not a country. So Indonesia and Guadeloupe. So when I went to Indonesia, I went to Bali and I stayed in Ubud. And while I was there, I think I had 2 days out of the week that I was there. Where did I go before Bali? I don't even remember where I went before. I usually try to do 2 countries in a trip. Like I'll do an extended layover. So I don't remember where I went before Bali. But when I got to Bali, I feel like I had a full 4 days, and then I left on the 5th day. But I didn't feel like I did too much. I specifically left one day in particular, I think it was the Tuesday, where I knew I wasn't doing anything. I just went like and got a massage and then came back. I had one day where they came to the house, because I rented a house, had my own private pool. The shit was so dope. And 2-story house, huge balcony, huge deck coming off of the master bedroom. Y'all, that shit was so bomb. The host was great, but most days I was out of the house so early that I didn't even get to enjoy the free breakfast that came every morning. Like, he would bring me a meal. He would bring me breakfast every morning. So sadly, I didn't really get to take advantage of that. But so I know that I had fun while I was there, right? But I went into it with these preconceived ideas of what I was supposed to experience while I was there. I was expecting some eat, pray, love, transcendental, life-changing, spiritual awakening, and just utter zen, like, and I didn't get that, especially not while I was there. The closest thing to that was the massages while I was out there. Those were so bomb, especially considering they were wild cheap. I think I spent $7 for an hour-long massage. So, and the place was walking distance from the Airbnb I stayed at, and they gave me fresh, hot ginger tea afterwards. I love ginger tea. Ginger was an acquired taste. Little, tidbit about me. Ginger is very much an acquired taste for me. So is kind of coconut. I hate coconut water. Don't like it at all. I've had it straight from the coconut. I've had it from the box. I don't like any of it. It's just disgusting to me. But I like coconut flavored stuff. Like, I'll eat a candy that's got like a coconut flavor, or something that's coconut, like a coconut icy. Ooh, that shit's good. I hope we get summer. But anyway, yeah, I didn't come home immediately from Bali thinking, oh, this was dope. Oh, I had such an incredible time. I was just like, okay, yeah, I had fun. I did a great snorkeling excursion that was supposed to be swimming with the mantas, but the water was too choppy. Like, the conditions weren't good for us to swim in the area where they were supposed to be. That didn't end up working out. What else did I do? I had this incredible sunrise hike. So they picked us up at midnight so that we could get to the destination by, I don't know, maybe 3 a.m. so that we can do like a 3-hour hike to get to the, is it the summit? Is the summit is the top of the mountain? I feel like it is. But it took like basically we hiked all night in the dark. Mind you, this is not like a trail that we'd seen before. Like, you're just in the dark, in the woods with, I think I had 2 guys and a girl and the guide. It was the 5 of us just in the dark, but gave us flashlights. And it was a lot more cloudy than what would allow for a very clear view of the sunrise, but it was still an incredible experience. Like, to sit at the top of a mountain I think it was actually an active volcano. Yeah, it was, because there was a lot of steam. That was the second half, where we ended up walking in the scariest of locations because there's so much fog, so you can't really see like 4 feet to the sides, and you're on this really narrow path with over 100 people coming and going. So it's kind of like, my nigga, I need you to slow the fuck down, and I need you to get the fuck off my back, and you to not kind of walk past. Can you see what's down here? No. Do you even know if there's some place for you to fucking walk over here? But my God, like, you're moving past here, like, we can't all just fall off this fucking cliff. You know what I mean? So that definitely bothered me. That shit was scary. But all that being said, the way down, the hike down, gorgeous, gorgeous. So that was really fun. What the fuck else did I do in Bali? Did a really cool day where I had this one guy. The lesson in that is there's a difference between a tour guide and a driver. Some drivers can be tour guides. Not all. I mean, some tour guides can be drivers. Some drivers can be tour guides. They don't always go together. Not all drivers are tour guides, and not all tour guides are drivers. I hired my driver from the airport to be a tour guide, and I learned that sometimes you're just better off paying for a tour guide, because he didn't have any information to give me. I could ask him a question and he's just like, yeah, okay, but I asked you how many buildings are in this general development or whatever. Okay, so basically you're giving me you're giving me a yes answer to a question that requires a brief description, or a direct answer, not yes or no and stuff like that. So yeah, that was that experience. And then I ended up just like not feeling good and just cut the shit short. But he was able to just drive me to a lot of different really cool places. Like, I basically told him where I wanted to go, and the guy drove me. So he did what I paid him to do. It's just I had a lot of really great tour guides that would also pick me up and drive me places. And I've had drivers offer, good services in terms of being well versed in being able to say, I can bring you here and do this because this is offered here. So it's like I had expectations set by other people that went above and beyond that this guy wasn't able to fill. But yeah, all that being said, when I came home from Bali, I was just like, And I remember telling my homegirl, Missy, hey Melissa, Unicorn in Brooklyn, definitely check her out on the Instagrams and whatnot. She's one of the young ladies that really inspired me to travel. Like, I saw her just jet setting around the world, and I'm like, sis can do it. I am sis. Sis is me. Like, I can be out in all these countries, and here I am. But I was looking at what Marissa's experience was in Bali, and so that basically tainted not tainted, but it colored my view and kind of gave me, I guess, an idea of what I was expecting. But at the same time, it's not like I followed her itinerary. It's not like I stayed in the same place. It's not like, I did any of the things that I can think of. We probably had, visited one or two of the same places, but overall, it's not like I followed her footsteps in the trip so that I could have a closer to what she had experienced. So when I got home initially, I was just like, it was cool, but whatever. But in hindsight, I'm able to look back on the things that I experienced, especially that hike. And I definitely remember having a really good time on the Luwak coffee plantation tour after that. I bought a lot of really good teas and coffees and oils and a whole bunch of shit. Like, I spent a lot of money in that spot. But I have good experiences that I can look back on. Same with Guadeloupe. When I first got home, it was kind of like, it was cute. I have no desire to go back though. But when I look back on the experience I had with the couple from Surf Guada. If you follow me on Instagram, you guys have seen me tag them in a lot of stuff. And y'all, they were the most incredible hosts. I feel like I connected with them, especially Kat. I feel like her name is Kat. I think it's Kat. I feel like I remember it's Benjamin because I had an Uncle Ben. Rest in peace, Uncle Ben. I definitely had a great experience with them. So that, let's see if their names are here. Kat, yeah, it is Kat. So we connected very well on that trip. So that I knew right then and there was the best experience that I had, hands down, at Guadeloupe. And I went on a second really great experience. It was just myself and the host again. And I had a really great time with her as well. But I still left the island thinking, that was cute. It was fun. And I didn't feel like it was one of those trips. It wasn't Cartagena. It wasn't Cuba, because I stayed in a couple different places in Cuba. So it wasn't as wow as those places, but the experiences and the takeaways were still incredible. It's just, I had to detach myself. I had to separate myself from the experience and rely on my memories to give me the wow factor as opposed to the immediacy of it. It's kind of like going back to when I'm propagating. I'll put the cuttings into the water, and then 6 weeks later, 4 weeks, 3 months later, I'm like, yo, damn, this shit is growing. Like, it's thriving. It's doing so well. And it's the same when it comes to some of the places that I've been. It's like, you know what? That actually was a really good time. And Bali and Guadeloupe are those two places where it's just like, I know in the experience I had fun doing a lot of things, but overall when I came home, it was just like, yeah, it was cool. I have no desire to go back. Don't need to do it again. But then when I sit and reflect on the experiences that I had, totally different story. So give it some time sometimes. Give it some time. And the last one that I wanted to harp on, the last lesson that my plants have taught me that have parallels to travel, is that what I want may not be what's best. Essentially, the common theme in all of this is motherfucking patience. My Nana always pays. If she could, I'd appreciate it. But she prays for me to have patience. I'm not a patient person at all. Many of us aren't. It's just not my ministry. It's not something that I don't think I was ever born with patience. It's just something that I'm having to learn to develop. I'm slowly but surely getting better at being patient. I'm more patient in some situations than I am in others. Like, I'm always more patient with children than I am with adults, because children aren't supposed to know better. Adults are. They're supposed to know better. But as most mature adults know, like children, not all adults possess the same level of knowledge. Not everybody's on the same level. Not everybody is. It's not an equal playing field when it comes to adulting. That's not how that works either. So yeah, there's that on that. But it's kind of like when I get a new plant, I'll have an idea of, oh, this would look so beautiful in this pot. But if you put a plant in a pot that's too large, you're basically setting it up for failure. This plant would look so beautiful against this wall with this color. However, this wall being the color that it is, that has something to do with it, but this wall gets too much sunlight. Or this wall doesn't get enough sunlight, and this plant is not going to do well here. So even though aesthetically it looks like it'll be beautiful here, this is not conducive to what the plant needs to grow. And the point in buying the plant is not to kill the bitch. It's to keep that nigga alive as long as possible. So when I get a new plant, I have to do what's best for the plant. It's not about what I want to do. And it's, again, one of those things that I can absolutely find a parallel for in a different trip that I've taken. And that trip, that reminds me of what I want not necessarily being what's best, is my Vegas trip. So if you follow me on the Instagrams _DCarry or travel and shit _ in the I for shit, you may recall that I got almost all of the excursions, experiences that I booked in Vegas canceled on me. They were all canceled. So I arrived at the hotel. I think I stayed at the Stratosphere. I got there, and right after I checked in, I started getting notification that the hot air balloon that I had booked canceled. Wind conditions or weather conditions weren't going to be good enough. The Grand Canyon, I think I booked that, it was either the Pink Jeep tour or one of those small tour groups I had booked or some shit. I don't know. Whatever I booked got canceled in terms of going to the Grand Canyon. But I had a new friend that I'd made in LA come with me to Vegas. We hit it off in LA, and he was like, yo, I should come with you to Vegas. And I'm like, you can pay for your own flight. And he was like, yeah, cool. And I was like, come on with it. So we went to Vegas, and slowly but surely, like, the trip that I had in mind was falling apart. I can't do this. I can't do that. This isn't going to work out. I can't see that. And it was really, like, bringing me down. I was just, like, at this point, like, what am I going to do? Because I'm not a gambler. I'm not interested in slot machines and tables and cards, and not my thing. I don't know how the games are played, and I'm not interested. I prefer spending my money on hard, cold tangibles, or even hot tangibles if I'm eating. I like knowing that my money is directly resulting and benefiting me in something. And I will say that I understand that some people see gambling as a hard, tangible, hey, I'm getting something from it because it feels good, but that's not what gambling feels like to me. I think I allotted myself like $100 just because I'm in Vegas. I'm not going to go to the casino. So I went down, and, you know, the friend that I made was like, yo, my dad gambled. I know what I'm doing. This is how this works. This is what you should look for when we do this. This is how this works. I'm going to explain the rules to this game. And so it was like, even though I didn't anticipate doing all of that, I had a good time listening to him explain to me. And, like, I remember I was at, it wasn't craps. It was roulette. We were at the roulette table, and I was, like, counting. I was like, okay, I put this here, I'm gonna choose. And he's just like, what are you doing? Sit down, like, put your hands down. You don't count in Vegas. Just play it cool. And I'm just like, oh my God, they're gonna kick us out. It was the weirdest, cutest, like, he's just like, and the lady at the table was just like, this dude, she don't know what the fuck like, you're fine, girl, relax. And so I was, like, expecting, like, these huge, like, security guards to just jump out and be like, ma'am, you have to leave or something. That didn't happen. But that was fun. And I will say to, let's just call him D. When he saw how disappointed I was about not being able to go on the experiences that I had wanted to do, and I'm just trying to, like, hustle and be like, fuck, I'm not going to not see the Grand Canyon. I'm not going to get this far and not see the Grand Canyon. So now I'm trying to find out who can I book last minute, who is going to charge the best price, and he's just like, babe, why don't you just rent a car? I'll drive you. And so I'm like, for serious? Because I want to say it's like an 8-hour drive. Or maybe it's like 6. It's long as fuck. I wasn't trying to do it. I hate driving. I don't enjoy driving at all. I'm a good driver, but I hate driving. It's just not something that I really like doing. Now, a road trip like that I could probably do, but I absolutely would rather somebody else do it. That's why I pay for group excursions, so that other people can drive me. I've never driven a car while abroad. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever driven a car while I was on vacation out of the state even. I'm thinking in Virginia. Did I ever drive? Nope, my cousins drove me around. Did I ever drive in New Orleans? Nope, Angie always drove. Did I ever? And then that nigga drove. Oh, yep, that's a lie. Yeah. Back in my flued out days, Shorty had a Range and a Maserati, and he was sending me to get my nails done. He was just like, yeah, just take the coupe. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't like driving. If I can't afford to fix it, I don't want to drive it. And I can't afford to fix nobody's Maserati. And so he was just like, no, just, even if you crash it, like, and I'm just like, it's not how I operate. So I drove from his house to the gas station. That was as far as that would go. And I'm like, that's it. I've driven a Maserati. It's a good time. So, yeah, I'm not big on driving. And then I remember I went with my cousin Nikki to Atlanta. She and her mama drive Benzes. At this time, Connie had a 7 Series and Nikki was in a CLK. We drove from New York to Atlanta, and I don't have Benz money yet. But I knew good and damn well that if I can't afford to fix something, then I don't want to drive it. So they were talking about deer, and there's no lights out there in the street. It's like, because they were in Peachtree. I don't know if they still have the house out there, but yeah, So I'm not big on driving. But all that being said, D was like, rent a car, I will drive you. And this man drove me from Vegas to the Grand Canyon. We stopped at, I think it's called Roadkill Diner. And I'm kind of wishing I let him buy me the hat. He was like, you want a hat? Like, I'm going to get one. We would have had matching hats. It would have been so cute. But I was just like, it was a trucker hat. Kind of like a Von Dutch kind of hat. And at that time, I wasn't as into hats as I am now. I'm a big dad hat fan. But all that being said, he drove me out there. We stopped at, I think it was Roadkill Diner on Route 66. That was a really fun time. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences I've ever had when traveling, because it was me spending time with someone that I've really connected well with, and it was totally foreign from what I was expecting. I had this, I'm going to do this in the morning, and then when this is done, I have this for this day, and I had these plans. And Mother Nature, if you will, because it was weather for the most part that canceled. And I think the small group trip that I booked was too small. I guess not enough people had booked it. But either way, it got canceled. I couldn't go. And I realized once I got to the Grand Canyon with D, that was exactly what I needed, because I was able to experience it in my own time. We took our time. We were able to walk where we wanted to walk. We could take the path that we wanted to take. We were able to choose which rim of the Grand Canyon we wanted to go to. Some tours will take you to the west rim, some will take you to the south, whatever. And you book it that way. Like, you know for the most part what you're going to see or what area you're going to look at when you book your excursion or your experience. And we fully intended to stop at the Hoover Dam, but the turnoff for it was, we just couldn't, like, on the way there, we were like, oh, let's wait and do it on the way back, see how tired we are, because it didn't really make sense to, I guess, expend all the energy that we wanted to in the beginning of the trip. It made more sense to be like, all right, well, let's do what we can and then be reasonable about our capabilities. I had to touch the wheel once, and all it cost me was a rental for a day. Well, 2 days, because, you know, we kept it overnight. And then we were able to come back. I was exhausted. He insisted on driving me down the strip so that I could see what Vegas looked like. But I'm just like, I live in New York. This is not new or exciting for me. It's a bunch of lights. This is Times Square. It's just long. I'm over it. And I'm not a party person either. So just, you know, the whole idea of like, you know, people are leaving and going and coming to parties just wasn't interesting to me. But still, it was the sentiment. It was that someone could be so kind and caring to me, and it still, I'm talking about it fondly. And that is one of those experiences that in a whole, I had no idea that I really needed. And it was just not what I planned, but it was exactly what I needed. So even though what I wanted didn't happen, what was best for me at the time ended up happening. So sometimes you kind of just have to let go of what you want and do what's best. Another example of that would probably be, I won't say all of Europe, but 2 parts. Hostel stays. I love having space to myself. I live alone. I have an entire apartment to myself in my regular life. So when I travel, I enjoy those same comforts of home. I like to, you know, rent space for one, but I'm not really big on hotels. I like Airbnbs better because they're almost always more cost effective. I can always find an entire apartment for less than I would spend at a hotel. And you can often find an apartment for motel prices. So what you'd spend at like Motel 6, you can really get like a nice studio apartment or 1-bedroom apartment depending on where you're staying. That is the caveat. It depends on where you're staying. So in Europe, when it's only going to be a long layover trip, it don't make sense for me to, you know, have the comfort and the luxury of having an apartment to myself when I'm really just going to drop my bags off, explore the city, sleep, shower, and leave. So it's not the, I don't want to say luxury because not all the places I stay, well, no, I guess it will be a luxury because it's not a hostel. So it's not the luxury of an apartment, but what's best is a hostel. I'm going to spend $16 for this bed and this locker or whatever that I can put my suitcase in and lock it. I'm going to spend that $16 as opposed to spending, you know, $80 or $112 on an Airbnb or a hotel that I'm literally just dropping my shit off and taking a shower in. Another example is also still in Europe would be Amsterdam. So I won't say who, but a lot of us would love to go to Amsterdam and totally get fucked up. I didn't. Just because I knew that it's just me here, alone, by myself. And in my mind, in my New York mind, this is prime space for someone to look for someone to take advantage of. Because people come to Amsterdam just to smoke or to indulge in, which is technically not legal over there. It's just that the sale, like it's a strange catch-22. It's one of those things where it's not technically legal, but it's not something that they enforce. You know what I mean? And they explain it to you when you get there, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, well, I'm not here for that, so I'm not like paying that much attention to it, but it was really interesting. But I'm glad that I didn't go out there and get fucked up, because when I got back to the hostel, I ended up meeting up Shifa, and we were able to have an incredible discussion. And I want to say that that was episode 63, Getting Robbed Abroad and Solo Travel as a Muslim Woman with Wildberry Is Me. Episode 63, absolutely check that out. And hey boo. So yeah, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but because who doesn't want to go to Amsterdam and indulge, right? But it was what was best for me. And it turned out being a really good thing that I didn't, because I had such an incredible time talking with Shifa. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of parallels between this plant mom life and travel. And honestly, it's kind of one of those things where if you just sit and think about it, you can kind of find the lessons in a lot of different places in life. And it's proof to me that you never stop learning. You know what I mean? You never stop learning if you put yourselves in positions to grow. And so even though you may not be able to get on a plane and go someplace new, or even though you may not be able to even traverse through the country driving or on trains and however other means of transportation and modes of transportation that you may take, even though you may be restricted in your travels right now, you can find lessons, you can find experiences that you would get from travel in so many different areas in your life. And it's not the experience. It's not the experience. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I'm experiencing myself the same way I do as travel, or I'm having such a good time I don't ever need to travel again. No, I'm looking forward to traveling again. But I honestly got to say that I'm not, even as much as I travel, and I take maybe 6 trips a year, even as much as I travel, I can't say that my spirit is starving for a plane. I'm not starving for another island someplace, because I'm really trying to take this time and really, find the lessons and find the experiences in what can be perceived as mundane. It's kind of like I don't want to say I used to say, because I still believe it, but you can learn something from anyone if you ask the right questions. When I used to have, I used to do the whole blogging thing, and I did the YouTube thing, and a big part of it, what transitioned me to where I am here with the podcast, if you don't know, I started blogging, I don't know when, and I want to say maybe 2013. Let's just throw that number out, right? Started blogging years ago, and I cold messaged or emailed a couple of people and was just like, I really admire what it is that you're doing. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And I would email them some questions, and one of them is Malik, another one of them is Susai, another one of them is Rodney John, and those are the 3 people that I gotta say I absolutely appreciate them just answering me back. And starting with those questions that I sent them, and they responded, I would edit those, and I would then have like an interview for the blog. And what's crazy is I had messaged Susai on Facebook, and I just was curious, so I asked her a couple of questions, and then I realized, this is something that I like doing, and I have this blog. You know what? Let me just pivot and start doing interviews on the blog, because I enjoy it. I just do it for shits and giggles. Like I shits and gigs just send random people questions because I'm curious. Always been curious. And she agreed. I added on like an extra 2 questions or so, and then edit some things and clean it up, and you just throw it on the blog. And then shout out to Ken Dahl, Herbert, I love you. I was on set for a video with him. I was in a ton of his videos, and just being cute, just background, this smiling face, dancing, doing this little wiggle thing. Hey, did that in a bunch of his videos. And he was just like, oh, well, I'm going to have Isis. Isis is going to be Isis King, the first trans model in the, what is this, with Tyra Banks, America's Next Top Model. She was the main character, I guess you could say, in one of his videos. And he was just like, well, Isis is going to be there. And Mikhail, I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. It's like Michael, but he's not from the States, so it's pronounced differently. Herbert was like, he'll record it for you. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll talk to him. And so that was the beginning of me just interviewing people in real life, like person to person. And so thank you to Isis, and thank you to Ken Herbert. We were in elementary school together, and that birthed me talking to people and me being in front of the camera and doing that for years. And then it just came time for me to keep asking all them questions. But through that whole journey, what I stood strongly by, and I still stand strongly by, is that you can learn something from anyone if you ask the right questions. And don't count yourself out of that. If you ask yourself the right questions, you can fucking learn something from yourself. You'd be surprised how much you already know if you take the time to sort through the information. So I'll leave you with that. Don't forget there's merch. Head over to travelandshippodcast.com and go to the shop tab, and I feel like there's a discount code. I'll get back to y'all on that. Sign up for the newsletter for your chance to, now when I say newsletter, that's a lie. I don't want to craft and formulate emails. So I promise y'all, I'm not sending you a lot of emails. It's a mailing list. It'll notify you when there's a new episode. And in my mind, for all intents and purposes, I intend to, work on the website and have it so that it's a little more information that's there for you should you need. It's building itself out. It's getting there. But you can definitely head over to the Instagram, which is _dcarry, or travel and shit with an underscore where the I in shit is, and sign up for the mailing list. It'll enter you into a drawing to win a $50 gift card from jordansjungle.net. And that is where I've been loving ordering my plants online from. I'm waiting for another 5. I think I ordered 4 or 5 to come in. Separate from the ones that I ordered before. But you can enter yourself to win a $50 gift card. I'm giving 1 gift card away from the Instagram giveaway that I did. I have a 50% off coupon if you're so interested. That is also in the link in my bio on the Instagrams. And also don't forget to take the listener survey so that I can get a better idea of who's listening to the podcast, and so that I can give you guys more of what it is that you want. And, hopefully just continue to grow in a direction that better serves you guys as the listeners. So that's it. It's a wrap. I always do this. I say it's going to be quick, and it's a lie, because forever. All right, y'all. Be healthy. Stay inside if you can. I know that this is very taxing on a lot of us in terms of mental health, but just really be careful, only because you don't want to have to look back and say, if I only did X or if I did Y. A lot of people are losing people that are close to them. A lot of people are losing loved ones. And it's one of these things where a lot of us can prevent, or a lot of us have the luxury of not having to go out into questionable situations, and a lot of people don't. So at this point, I ain't judging you, but I just want you to make smart decisions in terms of what is smart for you and for those that you care about. So just take personal stock on what it is that you're doing and worry about yourself. And also, in the same vein, which is going to actually sound really hypocritical, don't judge other people that you see doing something that you wouldn't do. Plenty of my neighbors, I won't say plenty, but I'd say at least 2 houses in my area had barbecues the last weekend that it was really nice outside. And it's really easy to just look and be like, damn, y'all niggas can't stay in the house. What the fuck y'all doing? Like, woo, woo, woo. But I don't know if that was prearranged between cousins or siblings. Listen, y'all, we about to celebrate X, Y, and Z graduating. We're about to celebrate X, Y, and Z's birthday. This is really important to this person or whatever. Y'all gotta stay in the crib for your 10 days, or y'all gotta really do your part to keep yourself safe so that we can all come together to enjoy this together. I don't know if that's the conversation, and neither does anybody else. As much as we may think we know what's going on with somebody else, just give everybody grace. This is really fucking with a lot of people's mental right now. And, it ain't doing you no good to sit in your house looking out the window judging somebody else. So if you can, mentally and physically and financially, stay in the house. And don't judge other people not staying in the house from your house. That's it. Thanks for listening. Fuck with you next week. Be safe. Bye.